All right, everyone. Thank you all for tuning back in. Today I'm here with Mr. Mark James, the local legend, mate. Thank you for coming into the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This gentleman's got quite a big of stuff to go through, but it's important you know. He's a group CEO of GJI Group, a collective. Does creative, AI, all sorts of businesses. You're a mentor, you're a speaker, you're author of a published book, The Unspoken Customer. You got 27 years experience, a lot of wisdom in you, mate, in behavioural insights, customer engagement, and business transformation. You do a lot of charity and not-for-profit stuff, and you're on the board of QAS, Queensland Academy of Sport. Thank you for coming in, mate.
Thanks for having me.
I reckon there's going to be a lot of wisdom. I'm throwing out the rule book of the pre-scripted questions because you're a big reader, aren't you? I mean, when you first walked in, you've brought a book in to give to me, which is the first time anyone's ever done that, by the way. How important is reading to you?
There was an expression that was said once, and like all sorts of comments thrown out, that if you want to be a leader, you have to be a reader. And reading is not something when I was younger that I was so excited to do. I can think of about 18 different excuses why I couldn't read, not one why I should. The growth accelerator that happened through reading, for me, it quiets your mind, different to listening to a tape or watching a show or an audio book, but just quiets your mind and allows then to challenge or let you explore different ideas. And that's what reading has done for me. I'm blessed with a range of conditions, apparently, ADHD, dyslexia, neoteny, all these wonderful things that apparently you should medicate. Well, slow down with the medication.
That's a big topic in itself.
Oh, yeah, and if anything, it'd slow me down. But the reading is really what shaped some of my critical thinking over the years.
So if you want to be a leader, you got to be a reader. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? What's some of your favourite books?
Probably the book that made the single most difference for me was the book called The Alchemist, and that was a turning point book for me. It's a story about a shepherd, and you wouldn't think much of it to read it, but if I didn't read that book, interesting when you read out some of those market-facing accolades, none of that would be real today, because it was with that book, believe it or not, I was actually trying to get a job, and because I'd always worked for myself fundamentally, but I said, I think I want to be a rep, because they got a company car, mobile phone, and 4 weeks holiday. How good would that be?
Yeah, that sounds like me when I was a mobile lender.
Yeah, something like that. And I went for a few interviews, and apparently I was excessively happy. And I was asked a question by a potential employer. They said, hey, listen, what are your aspirations? I said, well, how do I get your job? And apparently that's not a question to ask. Anyway, back to your question, The Alchemist is probably a critical book. If I was to jump down from that, depending on where you go, there's a book by Dr. David Schwartz I personally love. And you don't even need to read the whole book. You just read chapter 2. And that's called The Magic of Thinking Big. And in the chapter book, I just love the title of that book. It's called Excuseitis, the Failure Disease. I give it to people that have got 15 reasons why they can't do something.
Yeah.
Critical chapter. In fact, I don't even know what else is in the book, just that chapter.
So what's it called?
It's called The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz. And I've got to tell you, that chapter is critical.
The Magic of Thinking Big?
By Dr. David Schwartz.
In chapter?
Chapter 2. Yeah, it's critical.
One of my favourite quotes, mate, is the excuses is the oxygen of negativity. Mm-hmm. Eliminate excuses from your life and you can achieve anything.
Yeah. Look, there's always a reason why you can't do something. There's always one. I mean, there's sort of two blokes running your brain, right? They sit behind your eyes. It's Captain Optimism and Captain Despair, and they're constantly in conflict. Eyes are like, there's an expression called GIGO, good in, good out, garbage in, garbage out, right? So one of the greatest assets available to us as humans, which is free, is called the library, but very few people go there. As good as where you may or may not be, whatever you put through your eyes, it has an effect of you. Equally, whoever you hang out with, right, which is a whole different thing, which I refer to as the dynamics of association. When you start to put stuff through your lenses, there's this thing that happens. So Captain Optimism says, what a cracker of idea. And then Captain Despair says, just hang on, hold my beer. Let me show you why you can't do it. And that rub is real. It just happens.
So true.
Right? So why would you get out of bed at 5:30 to go to gym? Why would you do a walk? Why would you go train and run the hills like you told me about that story? Why? And you can convince yourself pretty quickly not to do anything, right? But equally, you can convince yourself to do something. Interesting your expression there before about the enemy. I mean, the enemy of good is perfect. Just be good. Just be good.
Just be good, mate.
And you'll be perfect. If that makes sense, right? Because there's a whole reason, if I haven't got that right and the sun's not up and there's chickens and fuel crisis.
Just do it.
Yeah, because you can't steer a parked car.
No.
Right? So get on with it. But imagine you're thinking big, The Alchemist, sure, How to Win Friends and Influence People, cracker of a book. Anything by John Maxwell, brilliant. If you're into
personalities.
There's another book which I know you and I share a kinship for, but Florence Littauer, Personality Plus, The 5 Love Languages. Those are rereads, the ones I mentioned earlier, because as you mature commercially, not by age, but just by seasoning, you've had enough people say no to you. That's maturing commercially. Books speak to you differently, right? So
what you read back then and what you read now, it just makes more sense. It's different.
Well, The Alchemist is an annual reread for me, right? So I'll just plug that puppy in and go, where was that?
Yeah,
I wasn't ready, right? I mean, I got a beautiful wife, 2 amazing kids, and the education of what a 5-year-old might teach you versus what a 21-year-old might teach you, different. I mean, you got to be match fit. I mean, this is advanced. Right.
All right. Let's go back. Let's go back a bit. I'm going to take you back to you finished school, and like a lot of people who listen to this are young, mate. They're 17 years old and they're finished. Where were you back then, mate? Like, did you always want to be in business? Did you always want to have so many companies? Like, where were you at? Was it easy for you to get to where you are?
It's probably not something I've ever debated about whether it was easy or hard. I was always presented with, I think, choices. So I have this sort of decision-making mindset. I can say that probably a little bit more cultured today. I didn't really finish school. School sort of ended for me around midway through year 10. Apparently I wasn't suited to the learning program on offer. And I would not speak ill of school to anybody, but for me it just didn't work. And I always found it interesting to be around people, jobs that had that. So my first couple of jobs were in rags, selling clothing, Just Jeans and Roger David. And, then I moved into something a little bit more different. I was spruiking, in front of shops, butcher shops.
Brisbane?
Yeah, some great shops. And then in front of clothing shops and things like that. But then equally I did some very diverse things. In fact, it's an interesting question you asked, but I was a prawn trawler fisherman.
Prawn trawler fisherman.
Yeah. Let's just say that some of the choices that I'd made younger weren't as popular with other people. And there weren't too many jobs going, so I had to go on a sabbatical to up into North Queensland to educate myself around.
So mistakes were made when you were younger?
Well, yeah, I suppose they were mistakes. They attracted the attention of people that matter in that area. So Prawn started a painting apprenticeship, sandblasting painting, did a round of... And interesting about those particular roles, I went along, did them and worked out very quickly they weren't for me. Not because of the work, they just...
I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to be there. So I did them for a season and met some people and then found myself into another season. It's a bit like how I got into the entertainment business, which was before I started the companies, because I was quite proficient in the entertainment game.
Yeah. So if you're finishing school or you're in a job, you're like, nah, I'm not supposed to do this, mate. I'm on a boat doing prawns, it's not me. Or I'm trying bricklayer, it's not me. I'm a tyre fitter, it's not me. It's got to keep changing.
School's for education, life is for learning, right? So you educate yourself at school, and school provides structure and environment So I think that's critical. So that's not up for debate. Get up, turn up.
But it's not for everyone, mate. Like
I get it.
I love school, but I didn't like school.
Yeah, I talk to some young people as well because I do some mentoring at the Brisbane hub, and people starting out in business and things of that nature, and even my family. And I said, try not to think about what you want to do forever. Try to think about what you want to do first.
Yeah.
Because it's through that, and to speak of my beautiful daughter or my son, Madison and Cooper, Madison would talk about, this job is the best job and stuff. I said, well, here's the thing, forget the money. Just put the money to one side. Are you learning something every day? Mm-hmm. Is there something that's equipping you? Because if you're not being challenged and learning, you're in the wrong job. Mm-hmm. So when you're young, it's time to get real life experience. And I think there is not so much this generation, I don't really subscribe much to that, but there is a thing that you can do it quick. And you just can't. Time is a very important ingredient to make that work. So I think this education, and certainly one of the things I love about you is I'm a big fan of financial literacy. Mm-hmm. So you can learn how to get a job. So if I was to think about and break it into two buckets, you can earn money, so you can work that out. So that's earning money, right? And then, but generating wealth is a completely different skill set, and it's something that people overlook. That you want to get around people, right? And that's actually where it happens, and that comes exposed. So when I sort of talk to them, I said, go speak to your boss, ask how they make money in the business. How do they lose money? How do they make money? How do they grow money? And that's going to educate you. And so I think that's a great opportunity. And most people won't ask. I wouldn't be here today unless you asked. That function you did the other night, I wouldn't have come there unless you asked. So asking is critical, and it's okay to ask.
A couple of takeaways just now, right? So a lot of people finish school and all they can think about is money. You're saying, and I agree with you completely, forget the money. Where can you go to learn? Because you got to learn, mate. You all got to learn. And surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
Like that's a big one that you've said so many times now. How important is surrounding yourself with good people?
Critical.
And you're deliberate with who you spend time with.
Have to be selfish. There's people in your life. I was at a 50th. I had hair once. And this guy said this. I can't.
You look good, Paul, by the way.
Thank you, mate. You're a Lavendi. This guy did this. I can't take credit. This guy did this speech, and he made this comment, which just really resonated with us a few years back now. He said, there's people in your life that you'll have coffee with, and there's people you'll have dinner with. Know the difference.
That's pretty big.
Dude.
There's people you'll have coffee with, and there's people you have dinner with.
Work it out. And let me tell you, there are not many you'd have dinner with. So if you get dinner with people and you grow and learn and things like that, surround yourself with that. People want stuff, right, from you. They just do. And that's okay. You're going to do that.
You said always ask.
Oh, it's the beginning of receiving. It's the beginning of receiving.
And I have to look. I agree with it, guys. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask, and if you don't ask, you don't get. Gotta ask.
Gotta ask. Beginning of receiving.
But I want to chuck in one thing. You've always had a high positive energy, and you are enthusiastic, and you love life, mate. And I 100% the same, man. I feel blessed every day. I pinch myself. Is it normal to be in this position, or are you deliberate with everything you're doing every day? You only surround yourself with positive people, or how is it that you are in such a great mindset all the time?
This idea that rainbows come up at the morning, and there's unicorns flopping. I mean, I put my pants on one leg at a time, no different to anyone else, and yourself included, right? So I go home and, I got to take the bins out, right? And I had to work hard on getting better at being a husband, at being a father, at being a CEO, being a critical thinker, whatever it might be. And you have to go through, some call it failure, I call it challenge. But I don't know, I wish I could put my finger on it to give you an answer to your question, but I don't try to motivate people because it's a full-time job motivating myself. So what I do is I try to work with motivated people because then I don't have to spend time motivating, because this is my job, right? So I get up and go, let's go. because I get a fresh set of 24 every day. What happened yesterday, right? Boom. Very good. I'm going to know more tomorrow than I know today. How much more? Well, that's up to me, but I will know more tomorrow. I promise you that. It's a steel thinking, I'm going to run it this way. Now, there are days that I just veg, right? So this idea that
You're up all the time.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
So, and you know, that just is, it's just crap. But having a healthy dose of perspective. So when I take some people out to dinner or an extended coffee, I realise that people like yourself that want to make a difference in their life or have an impact on someone else, they're doing the work. And that's what the last couple of years have been super challenging in business for lots of different reasons. But there was this phrase that I heard which became like a mantra, I would say, every day. The magic I was looking for was in the work I was avoiding. Right? The magic I was looking for was in the work I was avoiding. So let's go do the work. Run up that hill. Do that. Does that make sense?
Do the work. Yeah, 100%. That's what I just wrote then is do the work.
I mean, there's a lot to be thankful about too. I mean, hot wife, beautiful human. She's very fast. I've only caught her a couple of times. Amazing kids. Awesome group of mates.
You got a lot to be blessed for.
It's like I've won lotto. I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
And I make a few bucks in business and do stuff like that.
But you've designed this, mate. You've worked for it. Like when you were younger, if you were 20, 25, did you look at yourself and go, that's who I want to be, this guy, and you designed that? Like you always knew what you wanted? Had dreams?
You can't stop dreaming because you just cannot stop. In fact, I dream all the time about what could be, what can't be.
Without the dream, brother, what's the point?
What's the point? I mean, and it's free to dream. There's no tax on it. There's free to dream.
I feel it's so important that people who are watching this need to know that everyone in this chair is a dreamer. We all dream about an ideal version of life, a life of going into Woolies and not having to worry about the cost of it. A dream of going, if I would like to go on a holiday to Greece, I can go. A dream of a car or a nice house. You've got to have dreams because if you don't, what's the point, bro? Why would you go so hard and work so hard?
Yeah. Some people, it's dealing with young people. I'm talking like you 1 to 5. You go and speak in the classroom, you bring your daddy to work day and they say, who wants to be a fireman? They put their hand up and they say, who can draw? I can draw. And then you get to year 10 and 12, who can draw? Oh, no, I can't draw. Right?
Self-limiting.
Well, you can.
Of course.
Now, we might debate that, but what I'm saying is you don't need to give yourself permission to dream, you just can. And it's free. It's like the library story. It's free to read. You just get to choose because it's about where you want to spend your time and you have license over that. So for me, I've got to be super careful because remember Captain Despair? He's working full time.
He's there, mate.
He loves it. And you need him. You need him. You can't have it without.
He protects you sometimes?
Sometimes I wouldn't describe him as protecting. He says, okay, it's time for you to get a lesson.
Yeah.
Right, let's go. Time for learning. Because optimism is a dangerous thing. Enemy that pessimism. So I try to find myself as a little bit of a realist. So it's the between two, right? Accelerator and handbrake. One of the great things about, and I don't use words like entrepreneur and things like that, but the ability to commercialise and go set up a business, forget all the reasons why you can't. You can. The uni thing's an interesting thing. You get a job, you're paid to learn. You go to uni, you have to pay to learn. Now, if you're going to be a doctor, I want someone working on me that's done the time, right? But the uni's always going to be there. And I think nothing like the education of life. It's going to teach you.
Yeah. Look, and there's different types. Like my mate is a heart surgeon and it took him his whole life, his my age, to just finally get signed off. And serious, prolonged gratification and reading and studying is just part of it.
Yeah.
But what a fulfilling job to save someone's life. Whereas for me, and probably sounds like for you, I needed to learn practically. And that worked for you. I'm going to try that.
Have a crack. There's no rules. I mean, we live in a blessed country, despite what some people may or may not say. I love it. And Brisbane, I think, is the centre of the universe. And I think of the son of a passionate immigrant. My heritage is 51% Italian. And that, I mean, learning off my nonno about, he used to say, in Italian, sort of sounds, I can't really repeat it today, but he said, look, be a contributor. So when you get out of bed, have you contributed more to the day than taken from it? And that really resonated with me. Okay, I don't even know what that means, but let's go be a contributor. And as a result, opportunities came. I learned how to ask better. I learned how, that's a no. That's what a no sounds like.
Yeah, you got to learn.
Well, you can't learn that in the textbook. And I'm not disrespecting that process, but there's nothing like a real customer standing in front of you.
Yeah, you got to learn. Mate, I got to tell you something. On last week, I went on the biggest Greek dinner on the bridge.
Oh, yeah?
And I didn't know what to expect, but it was an A-class event. Right. It was proper, mate. And Nick Politis was there.
Okay.
And I got introduced to him, and I spoke to him. He's from the same town as McKithitter.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, and a funny joke about that he said on the night was, it's true that the Kitherians jumped the fence to save the hinge. I hadn't heard that one. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to tell you. But this guy, mate, 80 years old.
Legend.
And probably the most successful Greek in the country. And he gets up on stage and he talks. And, mate, the humility the guy's got and the business acumen he had. But there's so many things I learned from just – I was actually quite inspired. But, man, why I was inspired was I was worried it would be like a Trump or something.
Right.
But he's actually a solid – great human that actually teared up talking about his Hellenic background and keeping the traditions going and so on. But it was so cool me seeing an 80-year-old still working because he's passionate. And it's not a lot of people in their mind think, I can't wait to just retire.
Ugh.
Have you ever, let's talk about that. That's a big perception for a lot of people. I'm going to suffer and retire and then I'll enjoy life. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm enjoying life now. So I don't know. I mean, there's a box or an oven they put you in. That'll be retirement, I think. For me, look, selfishly,
that's a good way of putting it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I get plenty of sleep when you're dead, right? So I'm energized about being around people. I mean, my definition of success sort of governs me. That if I can be effective and purposeful, then I'm energized, right? So when that stops, then I'm not required in that anymore. Then maybe that's what it looks like. Don't get me wrong, there are things differently I do today. The passion you talk about, Noosa, and enjoying some of the fruits of the work you've done. There's things I do of a similar nature. But I don't know. I don't think that way. You enjoy
what you do.
I love what I do.
Like you genuinely,
I can order from.
It's not a job for you.
No.
So your hand on heart, and I'm the same, brother. 100%. I actually very love what I do. I'm passionate.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons early on when my business partner set up GJI. We've never drawn a salary, ever.
That's wild.
Ever.
Why?
Well, there's 3 rules to investing. This my rich dad used to teach me. One of the rules is rule number 3, which is you never go broke making a profit. So we got paid if there was profit. Mm-hmm. No profit, we have to engineer things to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got our divvies out of, right? That's how we structured our shop. And we obviously expanded over the years, and I'm certainly eternally thankful that I've got a great business partner. He's the G in GJI. You know, in that environment there, we've always had an investor owner mindset.
Yep.
We've never had an employee mindset.
Yep.
And as a result, you make decisions differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about where your capital's allocated or what you should invest in. Instead of thinking like ROI, I've always thought about COI.
What's COI?
Cost of inaction. So if we don't do this, what's
it going to cost us?
Yeah, right. So it's interesting how that motivates you. And you can really lock down to critical thinking, and it doesn't have to be right, but you have to choose. You have to.
How often do you actually lock yourself up and do critical thinking on business?
You mean daily? There's always critical thinking. There's people involved. I mean, there's a social contract that anyone that works for you, with you, mate, they've got lives, they've got mortgages, they've got kids to put through school. So you have a responsibility as an employer to make sure that they can depend on that. Yeah. Right. So if you're not critical thinking every day, I don't know what you're doing. If you don't want to critical think, buy Commonwealth Bank shares. You know, you don't have to think about much because you're just a shareholder. Right?
So you see yourself not as a CEO, but you see yourself as, I got responsibility for these people who are with me. I'm worried about their mortgages.
But isn't that what it stands for?
I agree with you.
I mean, remove the title. You know, you're there. You've got a responsibility. I mean, you can't stray away from that. That's why risk and responsibility have to be linked. So if you'll only ever be as responsible as the risk you have. So if you live in an home and you have to worry about too much things and everything's taken care of, you don't have much responsibility. But if you have high risk, and I'm not talking about risk of a mortgage, I'm talking about risk like I've got to feed a kid, or I've got to look after my parents, or I've got to, you know, whatever it might be for you. So your risk responsibility profile will change. I love employing people that have got heaps of risk.
Yeah.
Because I find them to be exceedingly responsible.
You mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Tell me mentors is big. I've always had mentors in my life. I've always let someone lead me. I don't know all the answers. But let's dig into your life and Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, and I'm referencing that book by Arthur Cassos, which my wife actually gave me to read, which, you know, in your world, it was around property sort of investing, and I had this idea that negative gearing was a good idea, and they go, well, why would you want to go into business to lose money? Oh, positive gearing, let's go. So when I was like young, I'm talking like 8, 9, 10, I had a mate, top mate. In fact, I'm still very close with that guy. Today we ski together when we go skiing each year. And his dad would, when I'd go over to his house, he would have the newspaper out and he was reading stocks. I thought he was doing the racing form. And they lived in a very different house to me. Like they had a yacht, like a big yacht, like a 45-footer. Kids were always sitting around the table talking. There was no TVs. And I did, like, now he was quite a guttural Scotsman. And
He was tough.
Yeah. So I'd go see my mate and we'd swim in the pool, then I'd come up and then he'd be there doing his thing. And so while my mate would go upstairs and sort of do his hospital, and they had a great pantry. They had the
food.
Everything, stuff that I wasn't allowed in my house. You know, my parents shopped at Jack the Slasher. I don't know where they shop, but none of this stuff was at Jack the Slasher. Anyway, I'm getting to your point. So I would sit next to him and I go, what are you doing? Oh, I'm picking my stocks. I'm looking at yield. I'm looking at stuff. Oh, why would you do that? Well, because I can invest in stuff. So how do you buy something when you're not there? I don't understand. So at a very young age, I don't know, and maybe that's a gift for me that I was given, and that is curiosity. And that sort of is the premise on how I would ask questions. But when I asked, he was so generous. He says, okay, well, let me show you. Let's build a little portfolio together. Okay, let's build a portfolio. Now I've got no money. So I'm sitting beside him building. I say, that's great. So I remember when I did come of age and I was earning too much money for my age, way too much money, like I was just earning. I remember revisiting some of these things with you and it helped establish income producing assets. So, and I would talk with him about that, not in a way that he would ever tell me what to do. I was always curious about perspective. And he introduced me to another guy that later became one of my, not that I would ever call them a mentor, but someone that I was looking at their life going, that's an example of the life that I want. He loves his wife. He loves his 2 boys. They holiday. Okay. And he wasn't that magical. He wasn't like ethereal, you know, he wasn't like collegiate or anything, but he's just an average guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember making you talked about this thing before called rules, but I remember some prints. So one of the cool things about that, they would buy fresh bread every day. Mm-hmm. My mother would go buy 10 loaves and put them in the freezer, and because we were quite frugal. But imagine if I could be in a situation where I could buy fresh bread every day. I'm not oversimplifying the value of what his mentorship meant to me. But he was talking about that you make the money in your job, right? And then what you do, and this is where most people stop, is then you go put it to work. Now it's got to go do something for you because you don't want lazy money, right? It's got to go generate an income, right? So the 3 rules he talked to me about as a mentor, which I still live by today, is number 1, minimise non-deductible debt. Number 2, only invest, and let me lean into this one, in income-producing assets. Buying a brand new Ranger because you're a really good Sparky is not an income-producing asset. And number 3, you'll never go broke making a profit. Now, I could expand on all those things, how he mentored me, but he having somebody, and everybody's got somebody. That's the part that's so interesting. So now, even people that are doing it wrong are good to go mentor of. When I was in the DJ game, I was also in the band game, and I met this guy through a decision that I'd made that wasn't popular in what I understood as this mafioso arrangement on how entertainment was booked in Queensland. Anyway, long story short, I ended up going to work for this guy as a poster roller. I was Brisbane's best DJ. Well, rephrase. I was one of Brisbane's had success in DJing, making, $800 a night, and he wants me to go work for him at the Gold Coast, $500 a week. And I said yes. So what I do is I'd finish work and I'd drive to the coast and sometimes sleep in the car, roll posters, and then that got me into the entertainment space. But he became a great mentor in a different way. And you had to argue for your paycheck every week. I remember you'd line up on a Friday, you'd have more lined up on the desk and say, why should I give this to you? And I've gone, why would I have to beg for my money? And what I learned from that guy was I would never, ever treat people that way. So the villains are good as much as the good ones. What I'm saying is the village, and they exist. There are, to use that analogy, there are many wise people out there, wise men. I'm saying you need a village. My grandfather mentored me in such a way, I use the idea of being a contributor in the DNA of every decision I make, and even when they're bad ones. So now, don't get me wrong, people have got the same time. Usually successful people, and I'm not talking commercial success, but successful with themselves. They know who they are. They know what they stand by. They've got a set of principles. You ask them, they won't give their time. And they'll give it in such a way. You just have to be respectful. I probably wouldn't ask someone, hey, would you be my mentor? No. Hey, could I catch up for the cup of coffee with you? I'd just be curious about how you did this. How would I do this? What would that look like? So this idea of having a mentor is sometimes that will stop you from getting a mentor, but going and hanging out with someone
being deliberate with, you surround yourself with people who you want to be like.
Mate, I'm a cheap date. So someone would ring me and say, hey, MJ, I'd like to catch up with you. And I say, look, the cost is one piccolo. That's or long black. That's the rate card, right? So because I know exactly where I came from, and it's not a crutch for me. It's not a cross to bear, but I have a responsibility when they've had enough of me here that at least I've paid some of that forward. Does that? So this,
I love it, mate.
Is that all right?
I've got so many takeaways. Listen to this. Ready? So you're sitting there and you were building yourself to the man you are, and you saw that guy. He's a great husband. He's a great father. He goes on holidays. He has time for people. I want to be like that guy.
Yep.
So, and that for you watching this, I was exactly the same. I saw business acumen from this guy and family, from this person. I took all that and made who I am here today. I love your 3 principles of money. I mean, minimize non-deductible debt. So pay off your house. Pay it off. Only buy stuff that gives you income. Love that. I love that, mate. And make profit. If you're in business and you're not making profit, get out of business, mate. I love this one. Bad examples are good examples.
Yeah,
That's how I sum that up. Bad examples are good examples.
probably better.
It is, isn't it?
Probably.
I don't want to be like her because of this. I don't want to be like him. So they end up you end up learning so much from that. And I got, even in my life, I got examples of the way people treated people or the way people conducted business. And I learned from that as well, from old bosses. And that fundamentally builds the fabric of who you are.
Yeah.
So bad lessons are good lessons.
I actually probably learnt this more than not from, I toured some of the biggest bands in the world, Joe Cocker, Nirvana, Prince, in Queensland where we're doing these shows, right? And they sound like great names. We used to do these concert at fish shows that were just, doesn't exist anymore. It's the old Versace site there. But when you met them in the band room, like before or after the gig, they're people. They put their pants on one leg at a time. Now, some of them are different, and success is an amplifier. It's an interesting amplifier. So
you're saying that success amplifies who they really are.
Right. So if you're a dick,
You'll be a bigger dick.
you're going to be a super dick.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If you're a generous person by nature,
You'll be even more generous. Next level.
when I look at you, I'm absolutely certain, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were generous before you were successful, and now you've got a platform to be more generous. That's my read on you. Now, if that's wrong, then I'll stand corrected.
That's true.
And I tell you, people should acknowledge that. I got to spend some time a couple of weeks ago with a very successful Olympian, like next level, like very successful. And this particular person is doing a piece of work for young, aspiring, high-performance athletes. And the work is special, but it's not very popular. Now, I just turned and said, look, I don't know much about this. I'm a part-time mountain biker. So, but if no one's told you, thanks for doing this work, and this person broke into tears because the work is special. The work you're doing is special. And if no one's told you, thank you for doing it, because people need to understand that you got to do the work.
Thank you, mate.
And I mean that, because there's no free lunch here.
I agree.
Is that okay?
Let's talk about edification for a second.
Oh, great word.
Because that did make me feel good, and I try to do as much good as I can, and I hope I inspire others to do much. But the reason I was late to this podcast is someone else was asking me to help out with some charity thing. I'm all about that, mate. The whole business stands to make a difference daily. But edification is good. Like when you meet people, you seem to make people feel good about themselves. How important is edification to you in your life?
Well, it's a good word. The sum of my commercial success, even my personal success, is the people that I surround myself and work with. And sometimes they don't necessarily have a voice. There's an expression, that's sort of an ad expression, anyone can promote anyone but themselves, right? And so
That's a cracker.
Well,
so true, mate.
right. So it's conscious of time here. I don't want to occupy too much of storytelling, but if you promote someone's strengths in front of other people, they don't have to spend time telling about themselves, and they've got a message or a position to share. But if they don't have to do any selling, edification and organic referral, right, they're like symbiotic. I got a mate, hey, if you're looking for this, I've found it exceedingly easy to refer people to you. I don't have a single person I haven't referred to you directly or indirectly that hasn't said that was a good idea. Now, what their circumstances are is beyond my control. But to edify this, I know a guy, he's going to step through this with you. He's a professional in this field. And my experience is you need to talk to someone like that. And because they're specialists. So to bring someone up, and what it does, it dispenses noise and signal. Oh, man, that's where I'm spending my... So my mantra for 2026 is time and space, because the last 2 years I've been in changing gears mindset. Now I'm in time and space. So I want enough time and space to cut through the difference between noise and signal. And to do that, you've got to edify the talent up, bring them up and say, mate, they're an expert in that, whether it's some of the investment stuff I'm doing, whether it's some of the negotiation I'm doing with M&A, even some of the more in-depth stuff we're doing in the AI space. I'm bringing people. I'm leaving here today. I'm going to a meeting that's quite interesting. If it comes off, it'll be the first of its type, and with a very passionate Queenslander brand. And the guy that's coming along with me is nervous, but he's a genius. Like like 4 monitors, 2 cans of Red Bull, genius. Like he's forgotten more about this stuff. What do I say to this person? I said, oh no, we're going to talk about it. Don't worry, I'm going to set it up for you. So the first 10 minutes I said, mate, I brought along the specialist today. He's brilliant at it. Let's step through the outcome you're looking for. And all of a sudden he doesn't have to do any selling. And this guy wants you to just create the space for this person.
Diamond space.
Right. And I think that's where it's important that edifying somebody, bringing them up, and it's also a sign of respect.
Yes.
Call out what it is. Be appreciative.
Like the opposite of edification is criticising people and saying how stupid they are, which is just fucking...
Well, yeah, but there's a place to do that too. And feedback's like soup for me, right? You serve it up hot. I like my feedback hot. Bring it. Because that's me going inside the pain cave to learn, right? But you can do it in different places, probably not in a public forum, but hey, grab a room and say, listen, let me just talk you through this.
I like that. Because you're so resilient, you want your feedback hot like soup.
Bring it.
Bring it to me. Let's go.
Bring the rain. Because I don't have, to me, I've only got 24 hours today.
Let's get on with it.
Get on with it, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've only got 24, man. Like, we got to move through this, right?
I like that. That's a good one.
Dude, I don't know how many you get.
Yep.
24?
I'm 24, mate.
Liam, how many you get? Apparently that's a consistent play.
We all get 24 hours.
Right, so I got to go. So I don't need a 3-point PowerPoint presentation.
Let's just tell me.
Just go. You know what I mean? And now
that's that red choleric personality, mate.
Yeah, I got a few points in that. A couple of points of sanguine and 0 flag.
Yeah.
I might have 1 point flag.
He's referring to Personality Plus book by
Florence Littell.
Great book.
She wrote about her and her husband. Cracker.
Yeah.
Great book.
It's a great book. Looking back, what was the moment you started to unlock your true potential? Like the story I told you for me when I was at Villa and I put my mind to something and I worked for it was truly the time I realised I can actually, there's more in there. Was there a moment for you?
I don't know if there was one moment. I probably have to think about something my mother would say to me a lot was no. Now, let me sort of set this up a little bit here. So we come from a frugal background and money was pretty tight, and I really wanted a pair of Dunlop volleys. I so wanted a pair. That's a shoe that was quite popular back then. And I remember my mum saying, well, no. And then I said, but why not? All the kids at school have got these Dunlop bodies. And she says, well, if you want it, you go get it. And I went,
if you want it, go get it.
And I just remember that saying, yeah. Now, we might debate how sometimes I did go get it.
It was learnings, mate.
Right.
A lot of lessons and learnings.
But I mean, there was a couple of times life gives you these moments, all of these moments, and I know your question's about unlocking the potential, and I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just felt there were moments where you're given this choice and you can step into something or you can step away from something. And I remember I was working part-time as a spruiker guy, and I had debt up to my eyeballs on this car, and I had become estranged from my family and was living in the car and spending nights at interesting places. And I remember a mate of mine was a DJ at the Newnham Hotel, and he helped me get a job as a spruiker guy at this agency. A note came across saying, hey, listen, can you send this out? There's been an accident in the car park. And I was DJing at the time while he was on a break. And I remember, it's actually interesting thinking about it today, I read out the license plate. It was my car. and I'd walked outside and my car was in two pieces with all my clothes, broken in half by a drunk driver that had come back, and my car was exposed. It was unbelievable. I mean, and now I had no insurance. I had a debt of I can't remember, $4,000 on this car. And I'm just looking there going, oh, wow, okay. And this mate of mine says, well, if you want a job, you come live on my couch and you can drive this van, and I'll get you to drive this van. You can clear video jukeboxes, for 20-cent pieces or 50-cent pieces right through prison. I said, yeah, I'll take it. So I was living on his couch for a little bit, and then on the weekends he said, do you want to set up mobile DJ consoles? Sure. Yeah, okay. I don't know what that is. Let's go do that. So I did that on the weekend and did that. And then there was one night at the it used to be called, I think it was called the Gazebo Hotel. It was the top of where all the specialist surgeons on top of Brisbane there, and the round circle place. Yeah, you know the one? It's got the crappiest car park in Australia. It's got pylons everywhere. Yeah. So I couldn't get the van in there, and there's no mobile phones.
Cloudland or something?
No. This was just up at I think it used to be called the Gazebo Hotel. Okay. I think. Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, I do my last drop off on Saturday, and my guy says the DJ's sick tonight. Do you want to do it? Yeah. What? Don't even know what that means. So now don't forget you've got to bring your own records. I went, yeah. So the only place I knew where there was records was this old school radio station that was running at an old place that I went to college for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And so I went and borrowed those records. There was no one there when I was borrowing them, but I think they're okay with it. And I had an hour and a half of music for a 4-hour DJ job. So a lot of stuff was on repeat. So much so at the end of that, which is such an interesting thing about now, I got rebooked for 4 other functions, and then went later on to be quite an effective DJ in Brisbane, not just doing mobile functions, but rap parties and things like that. And, DJ at the best clubs, and that was a really fun time for me. Just before CDs and things. That actually got me then my foray into when I got into the band business, and I was, an entertainment promoter. So not so much thinking about what my potential was I was seizing these opportunities in front of me, and okay, well, no one's saying I can't up until and here's the other thing, I was faking it until I made it. So I don't even know what making it looked like, but right now it's good, and let's go. Let's go.
Let's go, mate.
Let's go.
So many takeaways here.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to say
mate, this is so good.
Is it okay?
Brother, early on you learn if you want it, go get it. And you're a yes man. I don't know how I told you that, but you say yes. Yes, yes, yes. Even if you, like you said, fake it till you make it, but you take opportunities. And that's why I got so many businesses. Yeah. You say yes, and even you don't even know how to even do it sometimes. I'm talking back then, mate. You didn't know how to do it. You jumped into it. Mm. So that's a great lesson for everyone, because you got to, mate, me starting a podcast, I didn't know what I was doing. And me playing rugby union, first 15, I didn't know what I was doing. Me getting into finance, I had no idea. No one knew, mate. Everyone starts off with nothing.
Yeah, I mean, this thing that...
you need to be an expert or...
Maybe. And the other thing is like this idea, which I'm never been a fan of, that's probably why school and I never connected, but this idea of 9 to 5, right? So I believe that 9 to 5 is where you make a living, but between 5 and 9 is where you design a life. That's where the magic is. So I'm going, okay, 3 or 4 jobs was idle for me. I was working DJing and spruiking on a Saturday and then promoting small live acts at the Wynnum Hotel. Yep. And they go, how'd you do that? I said, well, I don't know, just do it. Yeah, but 15 businesses, some would argue that there's probably 5 too many, even though we're about to expand to do some other things more, especially with this whole AI thing that we're in. And I'm not into AI, but we're into AI because there's no rules. Right? No rules. And I think that's it. That's one of the great things about saying yes to being open, and then... You know what I mean? Like,
imagine with things you wouldn't have experienced in your life if you didn't say yes.
Well, it creates a space, because now the deceit. Because lots of sayings I've got from books.
Please,
right? And there's a gift I'm going to give you today on that book that made such a turning point for me, like that book, The Alchemist. And I'm I'm not sure if it's. I feel it's the only real saying I sort of can own myself, and it's never fear the decisions you make, fear the ones that you don't make and should. That should keep you up at night, because once you've made a decision, you've made it. Made it. So now we can get on with it, right? Because most people know what the right decision is.
So many people, though, mate, say no so quickly.
Well, and you might have to say no. I'm not saying no. I didn't say yes to everything,
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm yes to open.
Yes.
Right, and that's okay. So give yourself enough permission to explore, and then make an intelligent what works for you or your family or your success matrix or whatever it is.
You said yes to me when I invited you very last minute to that seminar, which you're like, this is going to be one of those things that I don't really want to go to.
Yeah. And there's a set of rules that my family operates under, and that ended up helping us make the yes.
Yeah.
You know, because guess what? The seminar was between 5 and 9. That's where we do the life designing work. We got to go.
Yep. Tell me about life by design.
Well, in simple terms, that's just it. You can design a life. My nonno, he was in the war. He's even though my Yugoslavian friends, who are Croatian friends, would argue that I'm Yugoslavian, Croatian, I would argue that I'm Italian. But anyway, we'll leave that debate. But he had a billeter work. You sponsor someone to live in your house when you're during the war. You
Yes.
put them in, right? And he talked about how great America was, because he was an American soldier. And I found this story out like when my grandfather was really old, and he's convinced my grandfather to sell his farm, take his wife and his daughter, my mum, and come to America. So they started the journey down from Trieste in their wagon, and all the family's going, you're nuts, you're nuts, you're nuts. Gets there, and the boat sailed the day before to America. True story. He says, okay, well, what boat leaves next? We've got another place, just like America. It's called Australia. He says, okay, we'll go there.
Wow.
That's a true story. And when he tells it to me, especially in Italian, it's hilarious. So I'm going, well, that's my DNA. That means it's okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I got to respect that. I talk to my kids about that. So, you know what? You can. I mean, so this idea that life design is just, if you're a contributor and you're open to things, life's amazing. There's so much out there, especially if you respect the 24-hour in the day thing.
Yep.
Right? So you got to respect that. This idea that everything ends at 5 o'clock and I've got to plug into the whatever I've got to plug into. I don't know about those people, but I'm just saying there's a whole much more stuff. That's why I'm up at 4:30. Why? Well, there's lots of living to do. I'd like to go to bed about 11:30. I don't know why, but that's the time I like to go to bed. Don't get me wrong, I sleep sometimes too, but you can. There's so much to do. A great Greek guy talked about one of his highlights when I was saying, my kids are 5. How'd you nail it? Because I remember his daughter speaking at the Olympic soccer club, getting up at 21, and I'd only just got a 5-year-old, and she got up and says, my greatest hero is my dad. I went, oh my God, the very next day I booked him for coffee. I said, man, that was amazing. What did you do? He says, well, look, I was really busy. I'm an accountant. You know the guy I'm talking about maybe, RDK, Arthur Cassos.
Yes.
Legend.
Very, very, very guy.
No, top bloke, an absolute gentleman. Him and his cigars. He mentored me with cigar smoking.
He does love his cigars.
But he's
very respectful with his time as well.
He's a gentleman. And he said the best thing I did was while I was busy at work, I got to take that 15 minutes driving my kids to school every day. I said, write that down. So all of a sudden I said, right, I'm going to take my kids to school every day. Okay, so that was 15 minutes that we did there. We didn't deliberately, in our house, when we designed it, we didn't put a TV in the dining room. Because when we sit down, we
share
talk.
a meal.
Our kids, when we were growing up, as in like my kids growing up, they said, Dad, why has everyone got a device when we sit down? I don't know. This is family time. We talk. Now, I think our life is like an episode of Seinfeld, but what I'm saying is we talk, right? And, we're not skiing behind 3 yachts or anything like that. We can order from the left-hand side of the menu. We're okay there, right? But what I'm saying is we get to talk. And I find that valuable, So that's part of my success. My definition of success is those closest to me have got their love and respect. That's designed, right? And there's no rule book. I don't know what course you would go to do that. I'm just saying you can. You get 24. I got 24. How you want to spend it? No rules.
I love it. You listen to this guy here. I got so many takeaways just from that, mate. Contribute. If you don't contribute, you don't get. You've got to give out to the world more than you get. And I believe in the same thing. The Indians call it karma. I say the more good you give in a holy way, the more good you get back. It's the same thing. Contribute. You've got to contribute. There's 24 hours in a day. I don't think anyone got successful by working 9 to 5. You got to put the extra hours in. There's no simple underlying way. If you're watching this, you've seen here professional footy players, you've successful business people. They're not doing the minimum, mate. They're working all the time, but they don't see it as work. They're passionate at what they do. You're excited as well. You got excitement about life, and everyone should. I love life, man. You can. You're deliberate, and you got rules. You don't put a TV in the room because you deliberately want to spend family time because your version of success is family time. So I'm not putting a TV there. Haven't given my kids iPad. I don't want that. So I understand that. And you're a man by rules. You learn from Cassos. He drives his kid 50 locked in. That's a rule now. And I think you got rules everywhere in your life. Got to wake up at 5 o'clock. Got to do this, that. I do. And there's rules.
And I don't want to have semantics here, but they're principles, right? So these line up with my values. These line up with how I make a decision because life's messy, right? So if we're lost, how do we make a decision here? If you fall back to a set of principles and you're aligned on it, well, then you make the best. That's why I'm saying it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's good, let's go.
Let's go.
If it's not going to kill us, let's go. Our families came here with nothing. Let's go. And go. And let me tell you, I've done some cracker of losses. I mean, the line starts here, and I'm not sure if I'm everyone's cup of tea either. And that's okay. What I'm saying is, life's for living, right? So this is not a popularity contest. This is an engagement contest, and you can't rewind the tape. So what are you recognised for? Well, the Arthur Cassos story resonated with me. So his daughter got up in front of a room full of 200 people and said, "My hero's my dad." And I went, right, that's it, lock it in. How do I do that? I've got to go find out how the guy did it. And he was, as he's clearly successful commercially, but he gave me the time.
That's what I said before. He gives people his time.
Just give me the time.
But I like how you just ask people.
Why not?
So people here who are 18 years old, and I'm going to ask you a question in a moment.
Okay.
If you would look at yourself at 18 years old again, what would you tell yourself? But what this gentleman here is telling us is, don't be afraid to ask. If someone watching this wants to talk to me for a coffee, what am I going to say? No? It's our duty to give back.
Yeah. And you'll be surprised. There's a guy, you may have read some of his stuff, but I remember when I had this job down the coast before I went to, invested in this entertainment agency. And so you drive from Brizzy to the Gold Coast. And there was a guy I was listening to called Jim Rohn. And he's this American speaker, rah-rah-y, sort of pre-Tony Robbins type sort of stuff, right? And he used to say, asking is the beginning of receiving. Receiving is not the problem. It's lack of idea. Receiving's like the ocean. There's plenty. Even here in Brisbane, Carina, plenty. But some people go with the teaspoon. I'm there with 2 pipes, a bucket, a pumping station going, man.
Let's go.
Because if you ask, you'll get the receiving. I don't know why it works. I'm just saying it works. You just got to ask and be okay with the response. And some people just won't. It's not quite Oliver Twist, but if you ask, you'll know. That's one of the things I love about you is you're okay to ask. Now, you may not be able to help, but you're okay to ask, if you know what I mean. So it's okay, let's see what goes on to the next step. Let's see what it looks like.
If you don't ask, you don't get, mate.
That's it. Right. But it's there to be gotten.
Yep.
The part that's most interesting, fewer people ask today, so it's a great opportunity for those that do. It's Christmas in the asking club.
You got to ask, mate. If there's one thing that you get from this, is you have to ask.
Yeah.
Ask everything and everything all the time. Mate, I'll tell you a quick story. I got Vince Sorrenti as a customer.
Oh, yeah.
So I flew to Sydney.
I used to book him.
Is ya?
Yeah.
He's a funny guy, mate.
Yeah.
I remember going to Sydney for an awards night. I was 24. Didn't win the award.
Oh.
Pretty upset. But I went up to Vince and I said, Vince, mate, you made me. The wog jokes you pulled, hilarious.
Yeah.
There were 600 people in that room. And I said, who's your mortgage broker? He goes, I haven't got one. I said, what's your rate? He goes, probably shithouse. I said, can I have a review? Can I review it for you? And he goes, and he pulls out this Joker card, like a card of actual proper cards, and his was a Joker.
I love it.
I put it on my desk, every month or so, it was so hard to get a hold of. But eventually I refinanced him and he became a client. And now he MCs all of our
Does he?
All our mad balls, and he's hilarious. But if you don't ask, you don't get, mate.
It's the truth. And
when I was at a home show, mate, I used to ask people, who's your mortgage broker? You have to ask.
yeah,
I asked our producer here right now. I rang him. I said, mate, you're a gun. I really want you to come work here. Mad Life, the financial planner, the same thing. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's the one thing that you guys get from this. That is so true, and I never really thought about it.
yeah. And again, there's no rules on it. It's free.
So my brother, you go somehow you can time travel,
Okay.
and you go back, and you see yourself at 18 years old. Well, you know what? Year 10, midway year 10, you've left school for some reason we're not getting into today. All right.
Good.
And you get to talk to that kid. What do you tell that kid?
I'm not sure if I'd change much, because I also got to remember, and it's interesting, the book I'm going to leave you with today, and I told you I got a gift here for you. There's a lot of colour in that book. There's a story in that book which resonates to what would I change me as the age. And I don't know if I'd change much. And what I say is because without that, I wouldn't have the perspective. When I'm talking to salespeople, if I'm doing sales training, I said the only difference between me and you is I just had more people say no. It's such a sexy thing. They go, no, yeah, you need them. In fact, if I'm not getting them, I'm nervous. Right, what's going on here? So I'm not that good.
So you say almost like you're going to get a shitload of no's, but I promise you, in time, mate, you're going to live the most blessed life.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to change because I would have never met my wife. I would have never met my business partner, my best friend, my brother. I would never have had these two beautiful kids because I don't know what other things might have looked like. Don't get me wrong, there are some things that if I could have avoided.
Watch out for this, and this.
This would have been good, right? But, I mean, isn't that part of the show? And so, I mean, this idea that, you know, there's probably a couple of horses I would have punted differently and maybe a couple of hands I would have done differently when I was playing in the World Series of poker. But I think I probably wouldn't change much. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
No,
but
it's actually the perfect answer.
The story is so...
It just explodes to me your massive optimism to life, and that nothing was a mistake. Everything was a lesson. And I had to go through everything to be living how I live today, which is a grateful mindset you're in.
Yeah. If I was to fear something, apparently that stands for false evidence appearing real. That's what fear is. But if I was fear something is certainly my personal family haven't had enough hardship. But they haven't, and as a result, potentially haven't built enough resilience. Now, it only comes through adversity. I mean, some of the education I've had by working in high-performance sport now, and I'm far from high-performance sport.
You're an athlete, mate.
Oh, yeah, I'm built to run. Is the resilience. Be able to go, okay, that's good. We're muscle building here. We're mental abs. Let's go with the mental abs. That's the book reading, right? So if you read, you pump the abs, right? That just happens to be the brain muscle. You just need that little bit, maybe a lot sometimes, of adversity, challenge.
Most people who sit in that seat, mate, have had that.
I think it's a critical ingredient.
I think so as well. It puts a fire in your belly.
Why rob that?
If your life was so good, why do you need to go so hard?
Yeah, I mean that's what that book talked about. There's a small story in that book about this bloke, and I'll let you read it. But he wants to find out the secret of life. So he said, you got to go see this king, and I'm going to go see this king, and so he turns up to this castle, and there's a bustling market there. It's like turning up to Mad. There's beer downstairs, massage chairs. We've got to have lunch together.
Yeah.
Like it's brilliant, right? But there's all this stuff going on. He walks through that and finds the king guy sitting on this chair. He says, I'm here, I've been told that you're going to give me the answer to life. He says, great, excellent. And he hands him a teaspoon and he fills it with oil. He says, right, you come back in an hour with that oil in that spoon. I'm going to give you the secret. He goes, right, I'm locked in. So he's walking around and he's got this teaspoon. He turns back an hour and he says, look, I did it. Here it is. And the king turns around and says, oh, what did you think of the tapestries? He goes, what? What did you think of my gardens? Did you see my museum? No. He says, right, go back again for another hour, check that out, and come back to me and bring the. So he goes, this thing for an hour, walks around, comes back. He says, hey, what do you think? He goes, oh my God, I've never seen such tapestries. Your gardens are unbelievable. Right, your museum is something, your market, like you've nailed it. And he says, how's that oil going? He goes, I've got no oil in my hand. He says, that's the secret. He says, you've got to look what's in your hand, but appreciate everything around you. So you've got to have both. So that's the realism, right? That's where you've got to nail it. The secret is you've got to appreciate it all, but equally you've got to have a look what's in your hand. And that is a balance that I've tried to work hard on. I reckon I'm a B+ student, maybe B-, and I'm halfway through my course of dealing with people. I'm 55. So I've got another 55 odd years to go just to get it right. Mm-hmm. And I reckon I'll get there. If I can just to get to A, but I'm B+ because it's here and here together. Does that make sense?
Mate, that's a great way of looking at it.
And that's what, mate, where's my friend over here? Where's that book gone? Where's that book? I just want to, because that story was where at 1:30 in the morning, I read that and I said, this is it. I'm going to go form GJI with my business partner the very next day. And it was that. And I want to present that to you too, sir. That's for you. Is that okay?
You're the first person to give me a book, mate, on this podcast.
I signed it in there for you on the page there, whether you can read my cryptic writing. But I just think it's such a...
George, never fear the decisions you make, fear the ones you should make and don't. Your friend MJ. That's lovely, mate.
Respect.
Much love, mate. That was very hilarious.
Is that all right?
I can't wait to read this, mate.
I think you got, and then my kids have read it. I read it to my kids when they were born. It is just, and don't let me overplay this, it's just a story about this shepherd guy going after his dream.
But it's so true, right? Like in life we've got choices. I mean, as you see in my office, I've got a massive quote, choices, not chances, determine your future. And it's the lenses you decide to look at life through. Mm-hmm. And you know, I look outside here and I see beautiful green, I see tranquility, I see opportunity, I see love, I see good people. But some people with their eyes just can only see negative stuff. They can only see why they shouldn't do it. And I love how you put it inside all of us. So we've all got the good, like the angel or the demon, or how did you call it?
Optimism and despair. They're captains. They're dual captaining the boat.
Yeah.
But you can't have a boat without both. That's the deal too.
Everyone's got both, right?
You got to have
I've got both. You've got both.
Yeah.
You've got both, mate. Everyone has both.
Oh, Liam, he knows. He knows. Look at him there. He's actually quite a handsome looking devil.
He's a good looking rooster.
Is he? Mate, he's a great host too. Are you blessed with your team here?
I'm very blessed.
I bought her the hot chocolate. I don't know where it's gone, but it's had to have it with the almond.
We'll make sure she gets that. But, mate, you are an absolute man with wisdom. And you're a man of values and principles and discipline and rules. And I reckon a lot of people got a lot out of today, mate. And I'm very grateful that you came in. I got a shitload out of this. And I just want to say thank you very, very much, mate, for coming in.
We appreciate the chat.
You're a great guy.
It's a privilege.
And heaps to learn from, heaps of takeaways. Much love, mate.
Much love to you too.